wonder if a certain person would even get this. You see, the simple life, simple stories, I do have them, and I'm going to root them out of my brain. But what it really is, and when I put on my material this morning the word refugee, and oh, you're not a proper refugee. I'm going to pad out my essay on. Yeah, ever since about 17, just a wanderer. I mean, my life is literally 15 years, 13 years officially totally anchored into children, and 2 years sort of anchored into a younger person who actually I should have just taken her around the world. But anyway, so those only anchored because of kids. Okay, for the first 2 years, kids and their mother. But the rest of the time, totally and utterly at sea. But the simple life, what is it really? In fact, it's being free of time. Also, in that I said to myself, in fact, I sent a text on Sunday evening. I'm going to put a splurge of material on my website on Monday morning. The text probably won't have been read. And it's building on some thoughtful philosophical themes, but even for the one person, if she were monitoring my material, now someone might say, well, she was officially a refugee. Not really, I don't think. Just as I was not officially a refugee, but I was exactly as a refugee as she was, age 17 actually. Anyway, to the point. But being free of time, it's like, yeah, but also you have to operate in accordance with the weather. This morning, now I was either going to go down to the cliffs and sunbathe, meaning sit there and get some UV with a book and my notepads, or, well, no, I was going to get to loading this splurge up. But I have done some work on it. I actually have listened to one of my interviews. I never, probably for the first time ever, I've listened to the one. So that's the end, my last interview. But it comes down to this. So, A, you're free of time. No, it's not sunny. In fact, it's not brilliantly warm. I'm going to have a walk later because it's raining tomorrow. But not too much wind. Do my spring cleaning and air out instead. I have done my spring cleaning, half an hour. But that's not what it comes down to. What it comes down to is this. In fact, the only real philosophical conundrum in life, and travelling and that kind of thing, well, I've never used the word tourist, and that's not an elitist thing. It's like you have your tourist and your traveller. That's the way it used to be. I met the German traveller. The wonderful little book, Bridges of Madison County. What's his name? Robert Kincaid, the photographer, is an itinerant travelling photographer, and he comes together with a homely someone else's wife, which I don't agree with doing, but he comes together with her. To her, he kind of represents this kind of freedom, otherness, not being bourgeois, although I just wish people would use that word. It's the most straightforward word. It's a magnificent little book. But the whole of my life has been, I don't want to be the itinerant. Being itinerant, because I'm lucky, I discovered 32 years ago, 1992, I discovered that I was 100% Robert Kincaid, but without, I actually hate to use the phrase, I flew small charter planes around. It's not glamorous. It was no security whatsoever. 1990, when the recession of 1990 came, because there's a whole kind of world of your corporate planes, they stopped overnight. They literally stopped. So that meant, I suppose you could say, there were a couple of hundred kind of small 10, 15-seater charter pilots in Britain. Overnight, it became impossible to get a job virtually, because that pool of labour, suddenly 2/3 of their work evaporated. It was just impossible to get a job for a couple of years. But here's the point. Yeah, being anchored into love of children, somebody else, despite being all my life, well, for 13 years prior to 1992, totally Kincaid, totally itinerant, without security, no security of income, just bobbing about. That little anchor, I discovered, was better. And that's literally the younger traveller who, much more because of the adventure kind of exploration mode that has been sold to them. There is no adventure in a bungee jump, even in the deepest gorge in Borneo. None. There is no experience in that. There is nothing in that. The stoical persisting via the harder periods of travelling or not having a community, being lost in the world, they're the actual adventure. The most unglamorous, the times when nothing can happen because you're marooned. They're the real times of mental evolutionary development, adventure. I know that. I can completely live that. I'm living that this second now. But Bridges of Madison County, the perfect romantic itinerant, the story of the travelling photographer. He'd been travelling photographer for decades. Could just about pull in enough money to pay for his vehicle maintenance costs and a half-decent bed and breakfast if he needs it. She, in that book, with her family, stuck with her unimaginative husband, which is essentially what the book is about. And she stayed in love with him even after he left. It's lovely. It made me cry. But she has the more fulfilling life, ultimately. Now that sounds like, no, not at all. There are only those two modes of being in the modern world. The refugee is essentially an artificial mode. People, the great majority of people in war zones, Syria, Libya, Gaza, whatever, have 100 times more anchored community than I have. Now, I'm not feeling sorry for myself, but that's a reality. They may become refugees, but they don't lose the anchored community in their soul. I happen to be one of the people on this planet who has never really had that. except for being anchored with my own kid. So be it. But the simple life, anyway, yeah, is just you're free. You're free of time. Okay, you're occasionally going to have some appointment you've got to keep, but I was planning to do. It's important to me to try and communicate via a really good splurge of stuff. And I thought of a really good way of putting something on Sunday evening before I met the German. I know, because I was talking into my audio. I'd forgotten about that. But it's more important to live in tune with what the weather is.